The Congressional Budget Office released a report yesterday that kicked off the latest battle over Obamacare and the creation of a new right-wing talking point right before our very eyes. You would think the mainstream media would have learned by now.
We have breaking news here on the Fox News channel. The individual mandate has been ruled unconstitutional.
Good morning. We have just gotten the opinion. I'm just getting a first look at it. It is authored by the Chief Justice John Roberts. He says the individual mandate cannot be sustained under Congress's power to regulate commerce. That means the mandate is gone.
If there's one lesson we've learned about the coverage of Obamacare, it's to never, ever trust the first response from the right. From the stories of the canceled plans.
They clearly lied to you, the American people, and obviously they didn't care.
To the toddler who was kicked off Obamacare.
First, their health insurance was canceled under Obamacare. Then they couldn't find a new family plan that would cover their youngest baby.
Time and time again, the first hysterical, triumphant response of the right has proven to be wrong. And yet yesterday, we were treated to the news that Obamacare is going to cost more than 2 million jobs.
The CBO report finds more than 2 million jobs will be lost over the next decade under Obamacare.
The CBO now says President's health care law will cut the number of full-time jobs in the United States by 2.3 million.
2.3 million jobs lost.
2.3 million jobs will be lost because of Obamacare.
2 million fewer jobs will be created as a result of Obamacare.
All you have to do is figure I'm going to be one of those 2.5 million.
This is a devastating report.
Oh, it's a bombshell.
Man, this is just like red meat for Republicans.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Washington Post had it best when they said that this is the worst headline of the year for Democrats.
From Fox News, cost of Obamacare, 2.3 million jobs. The Washington Times, Obamacare will push 2 million workers out of labor market. Glenn Kessler of the Washington Post fact checker finding other seriously flawed headlines. Wall Street Journal, health law to cut into labor force. Politico, Obamacare and jobs. CBO adds fuel to fire. The Hill, Ocare will cost 2.5 million workers by 2024. Even an AP reporter trying to strike a false balance.
Basically, what you have is two different ways of characterizing this report.
No, there are not two legitimate ways of characterizing the report. Everyone seems to have confused the demand for labor, which is, do employers want to hire, with the supply of labor, which is, do people want to work?
They say there are going to be people working fewer hours going forward because of Obamacare, almost entirely because people will choose to work less. They think the effects on the employer side, willingness of employers to hire, will be negligible.
What the CBO report actually said is that the Affordable Care Act's guarantee of health insurance and the way in which the subsidies work means that people won't have to work in order to maintain coverage and will be freed up to work less. In fact, House Budget Committee Chairman Paul Ryan, Republican and no fan of Obamacare, clarified exactly that point in today's hearing on the CBO report.
So just to understand this, it's not that employers are laying people off, it's that people aren't working in the workforce, aren't supplying labor to the equivalent of 2.5 million jobs in 2024, and as a result, that lower workforce participation rate, that less labor supplied, lowers economic growth.
Yes, that's right, Mr. Chairman.
In fact, the real effect of Obamacare on the labor market will actually be the opposite of those initial sloppy, false reports.
So when you boost demand for labor in this kind of economy, you actually reduce the unemployment rate because those people who are looking for work can find more work, right?
Yes, that's right.
As the media themselves have confessed, they bought hook, line, and sinker some of the talking points from our Republican colleagues.
And yet the coverage of the CBO report was basically retweets of Congressman Eric Cantor. Under Obamacare, millions of hardworking Americans will lose their jobs, and those who keep them will see their hours and wages reduced. It is easy to understand why the right relentlessly attacks Obamacare. They hate it. They want to destroy it. What is harder to understand is why the media continues to so readily play along.
Joining me now, one of my favorite conservatives, Ben Domenech, publisher of The Federalist and a senior fellow at the think tank, the Heartland Institute. All right, Ben, so can we agree that the Cantor tweet characterization of this is just not true, right? That is not the problem here.
The problem here is about labor force participation. It's not about some new aspect of Obamacare that's been discovered that's killing jobs. This is CBO is basically going back and looking at the prediction that they gave us a few years ago when they said that about 800,000 equivalent full-time would drop out of the labor force because of Obamacare. This is them looking at it again after new research that's been done by Harvard, by MIT scholars, by the University of Chicago in particular, that essentially found that the effect was going to be far more dramatic. In part, this is because of the effect of subsidies on the marketplace, but it's really driven by the fact that Obamacare is behaving differently than Romneycare in a couple of key ways, which was the basis for the earlier CBO assumption.
So that is a really good point, and I think actually this is where we get to where there is, I think, a genuine point of contention, right? Mm-hmm. Let's separate out two kinds of ways that people might choose to work less because of Obamacare, right?
Sure.
One, which a lot of people are talking about, is this early retirement, which you see a lot. I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying, I am working until I'm on Medicaid. Like that is, I'm sorry, I'm working until I'm on Medicare, right? That is a very common thing you hear, and there's a certain amount of people that the presence of Obamacare means, oh, I have guaranteed issue, I'm 60, 61, I can leave my job and I can have health care. I don't have to stay locked in this job for health care. That to me seems like a net benefit, right? Do you agree with that?
You know, yes and no. I think it's a net benefit for the people who are there, who are in that position. But in terms of what it could do to the cost of the subsidies, it could actually increase them because you've got older people who are likelier to be sicker. So that may actually increase the cost of those subsidies. So it's a slight benefit for those people, but it also could, you know, hurt the bottom line.
Now the other thing, right, is that the way, and this is an undeniable fact, this is not like some made-up right-wing attack. The way that the subsidies work in Obamacare is at the margins, there's going to be some trade-off that someone's going to have, which is, do I go into the workforce and earn more income and reduce my subsidy, or do I stay out of the workforce, earn less income, and keep my subsidy? And there's going to be some pool of people for which that's kind of a heads or tails flip, and that seems to me the kind of legitimate policy concern and critique for conservatives to make.
It is, and I think it's true. Here's the thing to remember. It's true of all means-tested programs.
That is the key point.
But you have a situation where right now you've got a lot of families out there where you may have one full-time employee, and that's not enough in terms of the bottom line. For a family that's making, a family of four making about $35,000 a year, the real effect that this has is that it makes it a lot less likely, a lot less tempting for that person to work a full-time job. It makes it more tempting to work in a part-time capacity or to maybe not take a part-time job for the spouse's side. And that's going to have an effect on the broader economy in terms of their future earning power.
Right. Now, the other question on this is, how much do we want people to work? Check this out. This is average hours worked, okay? It's not like Americans are layabouts in any way, okay? We work a lot more than a lot of other people. And so the question is, like, is the good here, the weird subtext of this whole thing, once people actually understand what the CBO report was saying, seemed to be this kind of idea that, like, man, we need Americans working more hours. I just don't see that as a political good.
Well, I think that the real question, Chris, for you is how many jobs are too many jobs? How few jobs are too few jobs? It's one of these situations where I think in terms of the evaluation that the American people are going to make for themselves, my own perspective is I'd rather have that family working more hours because it's going to increase their income over the course of time. It's going to lead to better outcomes for their family. The perspective on the other side is, well, they're working fewer hours, but they're going to have health insurance. They're going to have Obamacare there for them. And I think that that's really a question of what kind of economy you want. Do you want one where people are working more hours for themselves and their families, or do you want one where some people are going to be working more hours to pay for the subsidies, and some people are going to be working fewer hours, but they'll have health care?
I want an honest. I like this was very productive, and I think an honest kind of slogan for conservative Republicans is, "We want you to work more hours." Ben Domenech from the Heartland Institute. Thanks so much for your time.
Work harder, you lay about.
All right.